Today is June 20th edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source, and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois agriculture, we're glad you're here. We were talking about the Safe Creek program with Rancho Dame from Illinois Corn Growers Association and Pete Meyer from Muddy, Jacqui Fatka from CoBank, Brett Gibbs from Bloomberg News on Back Roads of Illinois. I am glad that I will be joining with them for today on the show. Otherwise, grain markets are open for today after yesterday close because of the June 9th teen in central Illinois and across the Midwest. Wheat harvest is underway in southern Illinois for right now alongside with the heat and dry. In Washington County, Illinois, they report on the yield is looking good for this wheat harvest season for southern Illinois. Okay, this is your agricultural news and markets update on Back Roads of Illinois. The grain markets are trading higher for right now alongside with the weather in the Midwest and Brazil's production. The wheat harvest is underway in Kansas and Nebraska. Brazil has put 18% tariff from U.S. ethanol. The U.S. ethanol industry has responded to the tariff from Brazil. Ethanol export has been an issue between U.S. and Brazil. Brazil has been import of sugar cane ethanol in China and India, U.S. as well. Farmers is dealing with the heat and drought in the Midwest alongside with severe weather across the country. And Illinois has been pretty warm than normal, according by the National Weather Service in Lincoln. This is your commodity markets update on Back Roads of Illinois. Corn futures finished in down 3 to 4 cents. Soybean futures finished in down 7 to 9 cents. Wheat futures finished in down 2 to 4 cents. Now that we are going to talk about the livestock market for today on this afternoon. Cattle futures finished in up 3 to 4 cents per weight. Feeder cattle finished in up 2 to 3 cents. Lean hogs finished in down 8 to 9 cents per weight. Texas crude oil finished in down 7 to 8 cents per barrel. Dow Jones finished in down 3 points. We were coming back with a discussion panel with Sustainable Aviation Fuel with Rancho Dame from Illinois Corn Growers Association and Pete Meyer from Muddy, Jacqui Fatka from CoBank. I'm joining with Rancho Dame for Illinois Corn Growers Association and Pete Meyer from Muddy, Jacqui Fatka CoBank. Brett Gibbs from Bloomberg Intelligence Research Group. Welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Great, thank you.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yes, doing well. Thanks for having us.
Excited to chat today.
Let's start with our conversation about the new GREET program by this administration for jet fuel for major airlines like Southwest, United, Delta. However, they are coming with a cost for farmers. What is your thoughts about it? Start with Peter. Could you explain to our listeners about it?
Yes, thank you, Caesar, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. So what you're referring to is most likely the 45Z tax credit, which will be given to suppliers of sustainable aviation fuel. Now, when we look at sustainable aviation fuel, every major airline, as you mentioned, Caesar, Southwest, United, Delta, all three of which we talk to on a regular basis, they have a decarbonization roadmap, each one of them does, to get to net carbon neutral by 2050. Whether this is achievable or not is very, an unanswered question. Most of them have a goal of 10% of their fuel to be from sustainable aviation fuel by 2030. But when we look at the overall goal at 2050, and let me see, I can pull United Airlines out here at the moment. United Airlines, to get to their goal of decarbonization by 2050, will require 55% of the goal will be achieved from sustainable aviation fuel. That could be from fats, oils, and greases, and what we call alcohol to jet, which is ethanol to jet. If we looked at all the ethanol Caesar produced in 2021 or 2022, granted the pandemic was going on, all the ethanol produced in this country wouldn't amount to about a third of the jet fuel consumed in the U.S. So alcohol to jet is a boon for the farmers, in our opinion. There is a tax credit involved, and I know one of your other guests will talk about 45Z more in depth. But what this is basically is this is a decarbonization goal put forth by the airlines. All the airlines are together. In Europe, for instance, the airlines are way ahead of what we're doing here in the U.S. And they all readily admit that the only way they can get to this goal to produce enough sustainable aviation fuel is through alcohol to jet or ethanol to jet. This could not come, in our opinion, at a better time for the U.S. farmer, given low prices, given an export market that just seems to disappoint all the time, given negative margins that are rampant throughout the country, especially in soybeans. So we're just hoping that the government will give us some more clarification on 45Z so we can move forward with some of the farmers that we're working with and position them to take advantage of this.
Similar, like net zero in the vehicle. They are wanting more EV.
Well, that's true. And, with the proliferation of the electrification of the U.S. vehicle fleet, even though we've hit some snags here and it seems like they're moving more towards hybrids than EVs, and the Biden administration also raising the mileage goals for a lot of these car manufacturers, like I said, this could not come at a better time. I think that there is a misunderstanding regarding the 45Z. The 45Z tax credit has actually been around since the second George Bush administration, and it survived 3 or 4 administrations to get to here. But now it's come to the forefront. And like I said earlier, what we need is clarification on how farmers can position themselves to take advantage of the 45Z, which could, in some cases, result in a tax credit of $1.50 per bushel.
For Illinois Corn Growers Association. Your growers, what is their respective of it in Illinois Corn Growers Association?
Yeah, thanks, Caesar. So I'll say with the new 45Z guidance that was released, Illinois corn, so ethanol-based SAF, can only meet that threshold if our farmers bundle certain agriculture practices. So those practices would be include no-till is the first one, cover cropping, and efficient fertilizer application that holds carbon in the soil. So if farmers do all 3 of those practices combined, then they are able to meet the threshold that is required under 45Z. I'll say that Illinois corn has some concerns with that because less than 2% of our farmers in the state actually bundle all of those practices. I was looking up some numbers earlier, and according to the USDA, even reduced tillage or no-till, that's very widely used by a lot of farmers that are doing soil health practices. but cover crops are planted on only 15 million acres in the US, and enhanced efficiency fertilizer is applied to $7 million acres annually. So we still have a long ways to go until farmers are implementing all three practices. So what we would like to see is maybe a decoupling of the practices so farmers are able to participate in the program. We do appreciate that, the guidance recognizes the role that farmers can play and the importance of climate smart agriculture. But I think for us, if you're coupling all these practices and you're leaving so many farmers out of the market, is there going to be that much buy-in? So that's what we're, trying to see decoupling. I'll say here in Illinois, we're working at the state level on some legislation that would look at a clean transportation standard, and all of the bills that we support at the state level, they promote climate smart agriculture practices, but they decouple these practices so we can have farmers still able to participate in the program.
Yes, we see that it uses by rejection.
Thanks, Caesar, for having us. I'm an equity research analyst covering renewable fuels at Bloomberg Intelligence, which is the research group of Bloomberg. And so a lot of what I'll be discussing is the tax credit opportunities for renewable fuels based off of the rulings that we've gotten. So first, I would just want to make clear that what has been released, what you probably have heard already, referred to as 40B, is only for sustainable aviation fuel produced in 2023 or 2024. This is important, first off, because we don't have a whole lot of sustainable aviation fuel production capacity at this point. And second, it's already late June. So how much can we shift in response to this policy? Why it's important, though, is because the Inflation Reduction Act introduced a new precedent for federal biofuel tax credits and called upon the U.S. Treasury to award credits based on the fuel's carbon intensity. So 40B, which was released earlier this year, what we're discussing is the first guidance that provided insight into how the Treasury will be measuring carbon intensity for the different renewable fuel pathways. And when the Treasury released this 40B guidance, they include what we've discussed as the climate smart ag practices. So we really don't see an impact from a renewable fuel side under the context of 40B by the end of this year. But what we do see is a future industry response under an upcoming tax credit called 45Z that's going to take place from 2025 to 2027. The final terms, as we've discussed, haven't been finalized, so things are subject to change. But what we've done on the renewable fuel side is use 40B as a precursor to analyze the potential carbon emission scores of these different pathways and tax credits available. To give you some numbers, we calculate that the climate smart ag practices could generate up to 19 cents a bushel for corn under 40B. But the interesting thing when running the baseline numbers through the scoring mechanism is an ethanol producer will have to use carbon capture and storage to get under the threshold and then start to take advantage of the climate smart ag practices additional reductions. Soybeans could generate up to 8 cents a bushel the way the 40B tax credit is structured. Now, under 45Z, the tax credit calculations are way different than what we have in 40B. For one, it's no longer reserved for sustainable aviation fuels. And each point below 50 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per British thermal unit of energy gets an additional tax credit. So climate smart ag for corn can reduce your carbon intensity by about 9.5 points, while soy can reduce it by 4.75 kilograms. So for each gallon of sustainable aviation fuel, you get 3.5 cents per point below 50. So when you think about that, now you don't have a minimum threshold, but this could translate to upwards of 57 cents a bushel of corn. So quite a big step up versus the 19 cents under 40B. And then for soy specifically, this could be upwards of 21 cents a bushel versus under 40B, 8 cents. I do want to kind of caution these numbers because the sustainable aviation fuel producer will likely be getting less tax credits under 45Z in comparison to 40B. because there isn't that $1.25 a gallon minimum, which could challenge some of the economics for these sustainable aviation fuel producers and the premium that they're willing to pay for this.
Is it possible to have a GREET program with every farm in the Midwest? Start with Rachel and Jacqui.
Sorry, I was trying to get unmuted there. So is it possible to have a GREET program with every farm in the Midwest? I think yes, I think that is possible. I feel like you would, like I said earlier, decoupling some of those practices would be key. I mean, you also need to have buy-in from the farmers. So right now, as it currently stands, not every farmer is going to implement soil health or climate smart agriculture or regenerative agriculture practices. And I think if you, especially under the current rules, it's not good, like not every farm is going to be able to really participate. Like I said, in Illinois with the current model and rulemaking, I think we could have 2% of our farmers participating in the new GREET program. It is possible in the future that as things evolve and different rules, that there will be more buy-in, and I think that would be important. Obviously you'll have with any program early adopters, but you don't want to leave out an entire you don't want to leave out 98% of farmers from a program. You're just not going to get buy-in there. So I think it's possible to have people participate in the GREET program. I think under the current rules of 45Z, it's unlikely that you're going to get that participation.
And just kind of building, so the GREET is basically just a system for calculating the life cycle greenhouse gas emissions for your, in this case, it would be for ethanol, but the corn that does that, how the corn that makes that ethanol. And so the GREET model basically calculates the impact, whether that's indirect land use change, and then also the emissions that are associated with all of the things that happen in the production of that corn. So there's going to be a lot of companies who are able to come alongside of farmers to help calculate their greenhouse gas emissions impact on their farm. And then that's going to be what is associated with their grain as they sell it to their local cooperative, as they sell it to their local ethanol plant. And then back to what we heard earlier about those profit premium potentials to go alongside with that grain. So being able to verify through a calculator, this GREET model is basically what provides that standardization of the impact of those practices on your farm.
Do you have any final thoughts on this discussion panel? Do you have any final thoughts on this discussion panel?
Hey, good morning, Caesar. This is Kelly Newenhouse. Thanks for the invite to hear this updated information from this good panel. As a farmer who has been interested in or working with the biofuels industry for 20 plus years, I understand the importance of lowering carbon intensity scores. But first and foremost, the most important thing we can do for the biofuels industry is get the carbon capture and sequestration projects done. You start getting those projects done, and every facility connected to them will lower their carbon intensity scores by 30 points. That's the big player. As a farmer who is interested in carbon intensity scores at the farm level, I've been working on determining my carbon intensity scores by field. Every field's going to be different. That's why I think the best way to determine carbon scores for farmers for 45Z tax credits will be through carbon intensity scores, field by field. What it's going to take from farmers will be a lot of data, a lot of accurate data, and being willing to share a lot of data. And I know that's been somewhat of an issue. I'll give you an example. I've just done 3 farms out of our 28 just to kind of dip my toe in the water. And I don't use no-till. I don't use cover crops on my corn production acres. I use a nitrogen stabilizer. But on the farms where I use commercial nitrogen, my CI scores are estimated in the range from 9 to 12. Where the average corn producer, from what I understand, is 29.1. So I would qualify with those already for 45Z tax credit if it comes to fruition. There's nothing set in stone at this point, and there's nothing determined if that's going to happen or not. But I think it's important as farmers to kind of be prepared if it does. The farm I have manure applied to, my carbon intensity score is negative 1.5. And so, those are opportunities.
This is Rachel Dame from Illinois Corn Growers Association and Pete Meyer from Moody, Jacqui Fatka from CoBank, Brett Gibbs from Bloomberg Intelligence Research Group. Welcome back to Back Roads of Illinois. This is Illinois Agriculture Update on Back Roads of Illinois. Well, we were seeing the warm temperature range of 90s. We need to have rain in central Illinois near Peoria and Bloomington. They had 2/10 inches of rain near Peoria International Airport. We had wet May, but this month not enough for rain in central Illinois. Otherwise, this summer is going to be hot and stormy in central Illinois. This is Illinois Agriculture Update on Back Roads of Illinois. Thanks to Rachel Dame from Illinois Corn Growers Association and Pete Meyer, Jacqui Fatka, Brett Gibbs. Well, folk, there are our show. Thanks for listening to Back Roads of Illinois. For Back Roads of Illinois, I am Cesar Delgado. Have a good day.